me thank Keating for inviting us. We changed plans. We're going to play games for the rest of the afternoon. What do you think? Just calm everybody. Brand, Shauna Kelly, and thank all of you for being here. As I go around the country, I find that the issue of healthcare and the issue of prescription drugs may be the most important issues that are on people's minds. They're worried about climate change and, education and so forth. I kind of think that healthcare and the dysfunctionality of the current system is something that is on people's minds, and for good reason. The reason is that we are spending twice as much per person on healthcare as do the people of any other nation. You got all that? Now, if we spend twice as much, you might assume we're getting twice as good healthcare as the people of any other country. Sadly, as you know, that is not the case. The case is that despite spending $11,000 for every man, woman, and child in this country, we have 87 million people who are uninsured or underinsured. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. 30,000 people a year die because they don't go to a doctor when they should. And incredibly, 500,000 people go bankrupt because of medical bills. Can you believe that? People are going bankrupt for what did they do? They got cancer. And that is so disgraceful, that is so cruel, that it tells me that we've got to change the system and do what every other major country on earth does, and that is guarantee health care to all people. And I want to explain what our healthcare system, our approach to Medicare for all will do, and how it benefits small businesses all across this country, and how it benefits every American. Number one, we build on what the Canadians do. If you have a heart transplant in Canada and spend a month in a hospital, what is your bill when you get out? Anyone know?
Zero.
Zero. Okay. You go to any doctor you want, you go to any hospital you want, cost of prescription drugs much lower than they are in the United States. So what our plan is about is the following. We are going to eliminate all premiums. Just spoke to a woman a few moments ago. She pays $20,000 a year in premiums. Okay, gone. Not paying that. No more co-payments when you walk into a doctor's office, which is one of the barriers for many people not going to a doctor when they should. No more deductibles. No more out-of-pocket expenses. And under Medicare for all, because we're going to take on the greed and the corruption of the pharmaceutical industry, and we're going to lower drug prices in America, nobody pays more than $200 a year for prescription drugs. Furthermore, what we do, Medicare is a strong program, but we have to make it stronger. What we do is expand Medicare to cover dental care, to cover hearing aids, to cover eyeglasses, and very importantly, to cover home health care. In other words, we have the radical idea that if you have a health care program, it should cover health care, mental health, dental, hearing, eyeglasses, all fundamental and basic health care needs. Okay? That is what we do. And the reason we can save the overwhelming majority of the American people money is that under our Medicare for All program, the healthcare industry will not make $100 billion a year in profit as they are right now. CEOs will not be making millions and millions of dollars in compensation. And most importantly, because we have an incredibly complicated healthcare system. Is that a fair word, complicated? All right. so that you have one program, he has a different one, he has a different deductible, she can go to this network, he goes to that network, your program will cover this prescription drug, your program covers, your policy covers another prescription drug. You have a $5,000 deductible, you got an $8,000 deductible, you got an incredible mishmash of complexity that when you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, you don't have any money, so you don't have to pay anything, but it's passed on to his insurance because he will pay because you don't have any insurance at all. But you have a different insurance than he has. It costs us many hundreds of billions of dollars to administer this system. This is money that just doesn't provide health care. It's just there for administration purposes. So we end the profiteering. We're going to lower drug prices so that nobody in America has to pay more than $200 a year for the medicine that they need. All right. Is it free? No, of course it's not free. It has to be paid for. How do we pay for it? We pay for it in the same way that any other major country is doing it. You pay for it out of the general tax base. We say that everybody in this room, everybody in America, has all of the health care they need as a human right. Whether you're employed, whether you're unemployed, whether you quit your job and you're moving onto another job, you have comprehensive health care. And we pay for it in a progressive way, which says that the first $29,000 of your income, it's different for small businesses, but the first $29,000 of your income is not taxed at all. Above that, you are going to pay taxes in a progressive way, meaning the more you make, the more you pay. And what that means is that the overwhelming majority of the American people will not pay any more. They'll pay less than what they are currently paying. They'll pay more in taxes, but they're not paying any premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, or co-payments. So for the vast majority of the American people, your coverage is far better than I think anybody in this room now has. Freedom of choice regarding doctor, freedom of choice regarding hospital, and you will spend less money on healthcare. Okay? For small businesses, what it means, we haven't come up with the financing because I got to fight for the principles of Medicare for all. But it will mean that instead of paying premiums, which you're now paying out of your own profits for your employees, you don't have to pay anything because these employees will be on the same program that you are. Will you pay more in taxes? You will. But everything being equal, it will be less than what you're paying now for premiums for your employees. And one of the problems, and one of the problems that we have in midst of all of this dysfunctional healthcare system is you have some employers who try to do the right thing. They are trying to provide the best health care they can for their employees, and it is damn expensive. And meanwhile, somebody across the street who's in competition may not be prepared to provide decent health care for their employees, which puts the good guy at a disadvantage with the bad guy. So you have a situation, not a small business to say the least, where Walmart, one of the large corporations in America, provides minimal health insurance for its workers who make 11, 12, 13 bucks an hour. Who do you think pays for the health insurance of Walmart employees? You do, because they go on to Medicaid. All right? So you got Walmart, owned by the wealthiest family in America, providing inadequate health insurance, and you picking up the burden for the wealthiest family in America. So you got a completely complicated, dysfunctional healthcare system. And the way you simplify it is you say that everybody, and this is again not a radical idea, this exists in every other major country on earth except the United States. It exists a few miles north of us in Canada. Everybody, the boss or the worker, has health care as a human right. And when you leave the job, you're still going to have health care. And the employer does not have to spend half of his or her life figuring out how you can get health insurance for your employees, which it takes a lot of time and energy. What's the best deal that you can get? Everybody is covered. And for the workers, what it means is we got millions of people in this country who are at work right now, not because they enjoy the work they're doing, not because they're proud of the work they're doing, but because they get decent health coverage for their families. So people are being trapped into jobs they don't want because of the coverage. We free those people up when you provide health care to all people. All right, so I want to give the mic over to whoever wants to go first, Keating or Steve or Shoshana, to talk about their experiences as small business owners. And I should tell you that Medicare for All is not only becoming increasingly popular all over the country, it's becoming popular with small businesses because they got a lot of issues in terms of trying to do the right thing with their employees, and it's a very expensive proposition for them. Shoshana, you want to say a few words on this, or? All right, Keating, whoever wants to. Steve, don't all jump up here.
You be the president.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. You could have my unfunctioning mic. So I'm Steve Rand. I'm a small business owner. I own a hardware store in Plymouth, which is a three-generation operation. So I'm the third generation owner, operator of a hardware store started by my grandfather in 1908. And it's a pretty proud tradition. We're pretty pleased to have managed to maintain a business that long, but it hasn't been easy. And one of our biggest, most disappointing and difficult decisions about almost 20 years ago now is what to do about health insurance for our employees. Because up to that point in time, we had provided health insurance for our employees. We had reasonably decent plans, Blue Cross Blue Shield kind of plans. They were able to go and get their health care needs taken care of without giant deductibles. 20 years ago, maybe you remember, maybe you had this experience. Premiums were rising at the rate of 20, 25, 30% every year. Our business we could no longer sustain those. Those are fixed costs for business, and we had to make a decision about whether we were going to be in business or whether we were going to not provide health care. We decided not to provide health care because we thought we would at least we'd have some employment for folks. And so for the last 20 years, we have not been able to provide a company-wide healthcare program. There are a few people, like key employees, who get a healthcare program as part of their package, but the folks who really make it run, we have to select people who can come and work for us, who do not need health insurance. So we have older people, we have really young people who are already on their parents' plans. We have people who are willing to take a chance on going without. It's pardon my term, crappy system. It really is not good. And it gives us a mix of employees who are not optimum. And of course, the other side of it is that we have actually lost lots of good employees who really like to work for us to other institutions primarily that do offer health insurance. Like they go to the bank, they go to the electric co-op, the hospital, the school system, and those good employees were the product of a lot of training, a lot of they're good people. They would have liked to have been able to stay and work in the hardware store. Couldn't do it. It's impossible for them to make it. So it's an impediment to the movement of people to the jobs that is best for them, because a lot of those people didn't really want to go. They were people who they did what they had to do. They had to provide for their families, they had to provide for and they made the move because they were good people and they were employable by these other large organizations. Walmart is a mention here. Walmart is my big competition. In my town, we don't have a Depot or a Lowe's, but we do have Walmart. And Walmart, as you know, makes it easy for them to avoid actually paying for their health insurance. They make the public pay for their health insurance. So, of course, if we plan to stay in business and have a competitive pricing, we have to do what they do. It really is painful, but we have to do it, otherwise we're not in business anymore. And that's one of the reasons why we couldn't continue to offer health insurance for our plan. Having Medicare for all would be an amazing positive value for our business and for all small businesses. We would now be in a competitive situation with other businesses to attract people based on real stuff, like working conditions, like opportunity, like ability to be flexible in their employment hours. All those kinds of things that are real values and pay. And so I do believe and I'll tell you, I'm a guy who grew up in a Republican family and was a Republican until the Republican Party left me, and they decided that they were all about big business and about the big money and all that sort of stuff. And so it's not a friend of small business. They're not a friend of our ability to compete, and they're not a friend of by continuing to not endorse something like Medicare for all. They are not allowing people like you who have really good ideas, who have entrepreneurial ideas, who want to make the jump from a job where they already have health insurance to actually make that transition. It's way too scary. You can't. How are you going to number one, have health insurance if you have a family? How can you make that jump? It is reducing the enterprise and the ability of us to adapt in our economic system to new opportunities, which is not good in the macro sense, not good in the micro sense either. So I'm sorry. I need to give some time to somebody else. But I do get wound up about this, as you can see. So my real hope is that Medicare for all will be a reality, and I see no reason why we shouldn't do it. And to those who say, well, it's going to cost too much, I should say back to them, we can't afford not to have Medicare for all. That's right. Because what we're doing now is costing us too much.
Steve, thank you. And Steve made so many profound points that we don't make often enough. Think about people who would like to work in a hardware store. I think it'll be a lot of fun. But right now, well, look at the election results. I don't know. Working in a hardware store, being president of the United States. We'll see. See how it goes. But, everybody has, people want to do different things. But that freedom of choice is diminished very significantly. You can't attract the particular people you want because of your circumstances. Other people, conversely, are trapped in jobs that they don't want to be. If you are a worker and you have a wife or a husband and 2 kids and you got decent insurance, you think you're going to leave that job? No matter how bad it is, it would be irresponsible. You're going to leave your family unprotected? So your freedom, and I think there are millions of people in that boat. So I just want to thank, Steve for doing a great job in talking about an aspect of healthcare that we don't often talk about, what it means to workers of small businesses. Thank you very much. All right, who's up next? Shoshana?
Good afternoon. My name is Shoshana Kelly. I'm an alderwoman at large in Nashua, and I'm also a small business owner. I actually I was telling them before, I fell into owning a business. A lot of people do that. But I worked in Boston in the advertising world, and I worked at a couple of big agencies. And I got to the point where I had a family, and doing the commute from Nashua to Boston every single day was just too much. So I decided I was going to work for myself. And I will say this is kind of the first foray into why this matters to me is I was able to do that because my husband had benefits. And that was the only reason I could do that. And as I have grown my business, I actually am a little bit different than some of the people on the panel. I don't have direct full-time employees. I actually staff each project with subcontractors. And having Medicare for all would change my world drastically because of some of the things that a lot of people the people before have talked about. Being able to be competitive. I have friends who just stay in jobs because that they need those health benefits. And they would rather come work for me, but they can't because that's very, very real for them. And so I would be able to actually attract more people. And I think it's wrong that people stay in a job because they need their health benefits. That's just, in the nation that we have, to have that be a reason to have to stay in a job is just, it's abysmal. When I was 17, I went to Japan for a year as an exchange student. And when I was there, I befriended the girl from Sweden, and she told me, this was 20 years ago, about their healthcare system. And I remember being blown away at 17 that someone could just go in and have their healthcare needs taken care of and not have to worry about that emergency bill or what it was going to cost. So 20 years fast forward and we're still talking about it and we can't fix it. And I think we can, and I think we need to start standing up to the insurance companies because healthcare is absolutely a right and not a privilege. I'm going to end with one personal story. So my mother was in a pretty severe accident this year, and she had just recently moved down to Florida. And when they brought her in, she was on a motorcycle. When they brought her in, they believed she didn't have insurance. And I will tell you that the way she was treated from the time that happened until I got there and we talked about her insurance was absolutely incredible. And from there, the ability to be able to care for her, I wanted to bring her up here so I could care for her, and I couldn't because her insurance was tied to Florida. And we spent a number of months with her not getting the care she needed, trying to figure out how to make her better. And there was a lot of damage. It was stressful for me. So I'm sure there are a lot of people in this crowd who have similar stories. I've had constituents saying that they can't afford the cost of insulin, life-saving insulin. Stand up in a town hall and say, what am I supposed to do? That can't be our country anymore. So that's a little bit about my experience. I think Medicare for All is absolutely what we need to keep moving forward as a country, and there's so much goodness that can come out of it.
I just want to pick up on, we can go on for hours, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. But what Shoshana just said, and everybody knows this is true. Your mother, serious accident, she would be treated one way if she didn't have insurance, treated another way because she did. We have people who have accidents who are seriously hurt but don't want to go to the emergency room because they can't afford the thousands of dollars in payments. This is the United States of America. And if this is not a cruel and, dare I say, insane system, then I don't know what is. Keating, you want to say a few words on this?
I just want to say thank you for Shoshana. Moving back to New Hampshire. It's awesome. Just so glad to have you back. And Steve, his shop up in Plymouth, it's a hardware shop. It shouldn't be a surprise to everybody in this room that his most sold thing is Ben & Jerry's ice cream. We both know that these two are brothers, and they're not telling us. They're not really. But no, we have 12 employees at Boards and Brews. Universal health care for all in the country. It's obviously a great idea. I'm totally behind that. We, in New Hampshire, at a state level, we've tried. A couple months ago, I went and spoke on behalf of our employees on the Sick Family Leave Act that passed the House 219 to 147 votes that the governor vetoed. So on a state level, we've tried to do stuff, and maybe it's time for a national level to get some help, because everyone should have healthcare. I have employees that, have had to leave boards and brews to go and work for big companies because they were able to get benefits. Even though, like Steve said, a lot of people really do want to work at hardware stores. They do want to work at boarding cafes too. And it's just hard to compete with big business sometimes when you have just people with tons of student loans and then health stuff on top of that. They've got to pick a job that is working for a corporation and a small town, small business kind of like us, where, like I said, we have 12 employees and there's 3 owners, and we all live like 15 minutes from the cafe, and that's it. It's just hard for us to compete and to make this like the best cafe possible when people are worried about paying for insulin or paying for their meds or not being able to go to the hospital because they just got injured. So yeah, super important. Again, I appreciate Bernie. Thank you for speaking on this and trying to figure out a way and navigate this. Like we've said, a very complicated field, and it is extremely difficult to figure out what policies to go for. So I just want to say thanks for the help, and have a good day, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. Okay, let's open it up. What's on your mind? Medicare for all, a good idea, not a good idea? What's your experience? Do we have a mic here, staff?
Yes, we do. Rob,
Where's the?
Rob, raise your hand.
All right, you got a hand right?
Right here.
Okay, let's start off right there. Please stand up if you can.
Hi, I'm Sean Anderson. I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I was born in Idaho. When my husband and I were at University in Idaho, he won a fellowship at the University of California at Berkeley. He chose to go. It was a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship, so he could go anywhere in North America he wanted to go. So we were there until 1970, from 62 to 70, and in 70 we moved to Canada. The reason being, we were hippies during the 60s to 70s.
Hold that mic close to your hand. Doesn't matter.
However, we sorry.
You're doing great.
Getting nervous talking. Anyway, we moved to Canada because my husband was diabetic at 14. We weren't evading the draft when we moved there in 70 from Berkeley. But anyway, he knew that if he went to Canada, that he would get health insurance because he was 32 at that time, and he knew that his issues would just get worse the older he got. And while in Canada, we have, they called him jokingly the $6 million man because he had dialysis. They set up a dialysis machine in our home before he did all the plumbing. He got a kidney transplant after that, and he had heart surgery. He was in hospital for 3 months. They brought home the equipment from the hospital after that time that he needed for a special bed to our home. He had so many issues.
Let me ask you the question that's on
honey,
everybody's mind. How much did it cost you?
We never saw a bill. That's what I was going to say. We had lived, I've lived there for 49 years. I had cancer. And my daughter has had major issues. We have never seen one bill. You go to the hospital, you show them your card, that's it. I've seen nothing else.
Thank you very much. And let's remember that after all of that expenses, which you did not pay a nickel out of pocket for, the Canadians spend half as much per person as we do. All right? Why is that? Because in Canada, you don't have a healthcare industry that made $100 billion in profits, and you have a simple, non-complicated system. You don't have to fill out 1 million forms. You don't have to argue with the insurance company. You walked into the hospital, you had a card, and that is it. So the waste in the system is not just the profiteering of the drug companies and the insurance companies, it is the incredible complexity and administration of a dysfunctional system. But thank you very much for talking about what exists in a humane, civilized healthcare system. I was up in Toronto, it's probably a couple of years now, and they were very nice. We went with some doctors and nurses from the U.S. to take a look at their system. Never forget this. They were very nice. They let us go into a hospital room. And the guy there was recovering from major surgery. And he said, you know, Bernie, I got enough problems trying to get back on my feet. I just had serious surgery. But what I don't have to worry about, unlike my American friends, is I don't have to worry about how I'm going to pay this. I don't worry about going bankrupt. I don't worry about medical debt. All I'm worried about is how I get well. Can you believe in this country, now if you were in, it sounds to me like your family would have robbed millions of dollars in bills. Depending on your income, your family may have gone bankrupt in the United States. Your credit would have been shot, which means you'd be paying 20, 25, 30% interest rates on your credit card. But they manage in Canada to spend half as much as we do per person because they get rid of all the profiteering and the administrative waste, and people are treated like human beings. Okay, other questions or comments? Ma'am? Yes, a mic right here.
Lisa Call from Boylston, Massachusetts, and I have had cancer. I have 3 kids. I have what's known as a BRCA gene mutation, so I'm monitored more closely because I have an increased risk of some cancers. We did rack up tens of thousands in debt. And I've done the math. I found out how many people paid taxes. I found out what was the healthcare expenditure in 2017, and what it came to was about $28,000 per taxpayer. And when I looked at my premiums, my out-of-pocket expenses, my Medicare taxes, I was already paying that much. And I think that I just want to challenge you to simplify your message. A lot of us are visual learners. If you could just put up a chart that really just simplifies and shows this is what we are paying right now, and this is what it is per person, and this is what it's going to be, a lot of us would be like, oh, okay. And then one more challenge, because I'm one of those people who, I took time off to raise my children and now I can't get a job. So I'm an Uber driver in Boston, and I talk to so many people in the medical field. And everybody agrees that universal health care is a wonderful thing. However, many offer the caveat that it's already an ineffective, dysfunctional industry. And so now I talk about what can make it better. And 2 things keep coming up, and those 2 things are paying for medical school. So medical doctors are not coming out with $500,000 in debt, and also something that I had not heard of before, but it's known as tort reform, which I'm thinking that you know. So right now we don't have enough doctors. So if we open up medical for everybody, it's going to be even more dysfunctional. So I would like you to talk more about how to make it an industry that is much more functional.
First of all, thank you. Your comments are great, except I don't like the word industry.
Okay.
Healthcare is not an industry. It's a service that human beings are entitled to. You are right. Look, in this fight, we are not only taking on politicians in the Democratic Party and certainly in the Republican Party and the President of the United States who goes around the country lying about what we're trying to do. We're taking on an industry that made $100 billion of profits last year, that provides massive amounts of money in campaign contributions and in lobbying, okay? But I think you're right. I think we have to do a better job in explaining to the American people how we're going to finance this and what it means. I think you're right. Second point, in terms of medical school, what happens right now is that many doctors, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the average debt is somewhere around $300,000 a year. Is that right? I think it's about that. As many of you know, on another subject, for a number of years, I've been talking about making public colleges and universities tuition-free. And just in the last year, what we're seeing is Cornell University Medical School, Columbia University Medical School, and NYU Medical School are now tuition-free. And what that means is other schools will do it. It means that if you don't come out of medical school $300,000 in debt, you can practice the kind of medicine you want to practice and where you are needed, rather than just going to some fancy suburb and making a whole lot of money to pay off your debt. But you're absolutely right. We do need more doctors. We need more nurses. We need to get them where we need it, where they are needed. We need the kind of practitioners that we need. For example, we're in trouble with primary care physicians. And we have to make sure, and the reason for that is they don't make a whole lot of money. Okay, so all of those things have got to be dealt with. But your point is, because you raised I think a fundamental question about this debate. See, there'll be mark my words, okay? And don't take me up on this, because I will win the bet. All right, there will be ads on New Hampshire television that say, Bernie Sanders, with some creepy voice. And some terrible picture of me. He wants to raise the taxes of the hard-working people of New Hampshire. Don't let him do it. Call up 1-800 and tell Bernie he's a terrible human being. And then at the bottom of the ad, you'll find out it's paid by some bogus group, which is funded by the insurance companies and the drug companies, who together made $100 billion in profits last year. Okay. But your point is what, and here is the point. You said you did some arithmetic, and you came up with a number of what, 28,000?
About 28,000.
Okay. All right, but that is not what we are proposing. Because you're assuming that everybody will pay the same, I think.
Only 46% of the people that are.
Well, we are not assuming that. Our tax plan, our proposal says that we exempt anybody making the first 29,000 is exempted. So you make 50,000, that means you're paying on 21,000. Not a lot of taxes. Okay, if you're upper income, yes, you're going to pay a lot more. But for the vast majority of the American people, you will be paying less in increased taxes for comprehensive health care than you are paying right now in premiums. So here is the story. Again, I just came from a meeting an hour ago with a woman. She was in, I guess, early 60s, I would guess, paying if she has serious health problems, $20,000 a year in premiums, not to mention a fortune for prescription drugs. Okay? So somehow that's okay to pay high premiums and deductibles and co-payments and out-of-pocket expenses, but taxes are terrible. And I think the American people are smart enough to understand that instead of paying $20,000 in premiums, you pay $10,000 in taxes more, you're $10,000 to the good, and you have a better health care plan. Let me say, yes, woman over there. Let's get her a mic if we could.
My question would be around the current budget, though. I mean, why you're telling us you got to raise taxes to do this? Why can't we adjust the current budget for defense and pay for us now, as opposed to making us, this futuristic thing? Which is, I'm not saying we don't do it. I think it's a great idea. We just have to turn it around, because raising taxes is not probably going to fly for everyone.
Well, we got to deal with
here in New
that.
Hampshire.
But you see, this is the issue. This is why some people don't talk about it. All right. First of all, you're right, in terms of we are spending more than the next 10 nations combined in terms of defense spending, and I don't agree with that, and I voted against all of Trump's defense budgets, which are rising very rapidly. You have a system where Amazon made $10 billion in profits last year, didn't pay a nickel in federal income taxes, so there's a lot that we have to do. But I don't want to lie to you. All right, if I told you magically that you're going to have great health care and it's not going to cost you a penny, would you believe me? So we got to be honest. Now, I understand what the media will do every time I'm on the media. How much you're going to raise taxes? Not how much you're going to reduce. What does it mean to reduce premiums, co-payments, and out-of-pocket expenses? And that's the line of the industry. So that's what you're saying. So we have to be mature enough to say, okay, if I'm stopping you, hypothetically, from paying $20,000 a year in premiums and out-of-pocket expenses, you're paying $10,000 more in taxes. Last I heard, you're in pretty good shape. Okay, and I think most Americans do that. But we have to get over this boogeyman. And it's hard with the media, frankly. And certainly these are the ads that you'll be seeing on television. But I can't lie. I can't lie. I can't tell you. I mean, this is what goes on in Canada. People pay for it. But they pay less than we pay here And you heard the story of that woman, what she got for what she pays. But she pays for it. She pays for it out of her tax, based on your ability to pay. Okay, let me get some other questions. I see a gentleman right here. Yes, sir. Let's get him a mic. Right here. Gentleman in blue. Guys, right here.
Hi, how you doing, Vernon?
Good.
I'd like to talk about the other boogeyman that gets brought up a lot in Medicare for All. And that is that we'll become a socialist nation where businesses will go under. And Steve, I think you brought up Sweden. You brought up Sweden. I lived in Sweden for 8 months. And one of the things I noticed was there were not a lot of shuttered, dead businesses with a for lease sign up. What I noticed was there were a lot of large corporations doing well, and there were a lot of small businesses growing up. A mother who was knitting her own, who I knew, who was knitting her own child wear for her kid coming up, decided to turn that into a business. And she didn't have to stay at a job in order to do it. And the businesses in Sweden and Finland and Denmark do not lobby to get rid of their national health care systems because they know they're going to have to take on those costs themselves. And as a foreigner in Sweden, I got really sick because I wasn't used to the cold. And nobody
Came from New Hampshire, you weren't used to the cold.
Well, it's a little different. The bite of winter over there is a little different. And I thought they were treating me they never even asked if I was a citizen. And I thought it was because I was so good at Swedish, which they laughed about. They said, no, why wouldn't we take care of you? You're our guest.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And you heard Shoshana saying that her mother, rather an American, would have gotten inferior care because they thought she didn't have insurance. I mean, that speaks to how we relate to each other as human beings. I mean, it's almost a broader issue than healthcare. It's to say that you're a human being, and in a civilized society, you deserve the care that you get. You deserve the health care as a right. And that this stuff goes on is really quite incredible. But again, the point you are making is it frees up. Think about all of the ideas that are out there, all the energy that's out there for people who would like to go out and start a business, but they got a wife and 2 kids or a husband and 2 kids, and they're not going to give up that health insurance. It really is actually an inhibiting factor, I think, for economic growth. But thank you very much for that point. Okay, I'll get to, yes, ma'am, right here. You got a mic coming for you?
Hello, Senator.
Stand up. Your name?
Effie. I've been up here 3 days a week knocking doors. I'm from Massachusetts. I'm up here because I have mass health. I have mass health because I am a poor person, but I can't find a doctor to save my damn life. So I'm up here 3 days a week knocking doors for this, among many reasons, but I just want to strongly urge all of these folks out here because we know that the media is not doing us any favors. We need to go to the doors. We need to call the people. Please volunteer, all you good folks.
But and thank you very much. But what we have got to do, getting back to your point, and I take responsibility for that, we got to do a better job in explaining what this issue is. People like pictures, but also I think maybe we'll put that woman on an ad or something, I don't know. But I think, my guess is, and correct me, what do you guys think? My guess is that most Americans don't know that our so-called healthcare system is the exception to the rule. Do you think most people know that her experience in Canada, the healthcare issues of her family cost her zero? Do you think people know that? Or you mentioned, a gentleman mentioned Sweden, okay, where, you know, it's not even a Swede. He was given the healthcare that he needed because he's a human being. I don't know that Americans know. And you know, the media, there's never been a special on Medicare for all, or what it goes on. Very few, I shouldn't say that. But I think the American people don't know much about it, and we've got to figure out a way to communicate it better than we have. Okay, ma'am, right here.
To me, the idea of expanding Medicare to all people is a no-brainer. And I've been trying to figure out why people are afraid of it. And the only thing that I can think of is that the only thing that's more terrifying than having your health care dependent on corporate interests is having it dependent on people who time and time again vote against their interests. And we saw what happened when they tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act and Medicare and Medicaid, people with disabilities laying their bodies out in the halls of Congress to prevent it. So how do we get people beyond that fear?
Well, that's a very good, and that speaks, well, let me answer in two ways. It turns out that Medicare today that exists is the most popular health insurance program in the country. And it's far from perfect. People are spending too much out of their own pocket. It doesn't cover dental, hearing aids, home health care, etc. But I think when you do the right thing for the American people, they appreciate it and they respect it. But your point is, people are very cynical about government. I think, people are cynical. I mean, look, this is a hard time for America. People are cynical about the government. I don't want to get into Trump and everything that's happening right now. But they are also incredibly angry at the insurance companies. I mean, how many people in this room have had experiences trying to get coverage for what you thought you were entitled to? Raise your hand. And this is going on, my wife has a PhD and she has had to spend half a life trying to figure out this stuff and argue with the insurance companies. And it's disheartening. And you got doctors who want to give you a medicine, prescription drug, they're going to argue with the insurance companies whether they can get you that medicine. So look, we are in a difficult moment in American history, that's all. Cynicism and anger at the government, certainly cynicism and anger at the corruption and greed of the corporate elite, certainly including the healthcare industry. So what we're going to have to do, and kind of what this campaign is about, is trying to transform our value system and our priorities. And it's not easy. It is not easy because we're taking on incredible money and incredible greed. But at the end of the day, if you ask Americans, should healthcare be a human right? They say yes. Do you trust the insurance companies or the drug companies? Hell no, they don't. All right? And we've got to, in a difficult way, regain, in a democratic society, we have got to regain people's trust in government by doing the right thing and by being responsive to the needs of the people rather than wealthy campaign contributors. Okay, I see a hand right here, ma'am. Yes. Let's get her a mic.
Hi, I'm from Manchester, and I'm known better as Cruising with Mary with a TV show. I'm a very bad, as you can see, very bad diabetic. I'm up to 6 needles a day I cannot take. My whole inside is, how can you say, the doctor's telling me is rejecting the insulin now because I'm getting more and more infection. I'm just getting over now another bad infection again. How much I can take of it, they're not sure. But I have to pay for my needles, my insulin. I cannot afford my insulin. I'm supposed to take 4 bottles a month of the regular, 3 bottles of the N for at night. So I take 2 shots in the morning, 2 shots around 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I can't take because I can't afford it. 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock comes around, another shot. I can't afford to use that 1 bottle. I have to use for the whole month. In fact, I borrowed the money because I ran out of insulin to get a bottle of insulin so I would have it because my sugar was jumping up to over 400 without insulin, and I have heart medicine I have to have. I have 2 to 3 blood pressure pills because my blood pressure will not come down on me. Something has to be done.
All right. Welcome to the American healthcare system. I mean, it is so disgraceful and so cruel and so much what this country should not be about. I just want to say one word on that, on insulin. A couple of months ago, I took some folks who were diabetics from the Detroit area, Michigan, to Windsor, Ontario, to buy insulin, maybe the exact same product you're using, I don't know. We paid 1/10 the price. People save thousands of dollars on their insulin bill. You know what I learned on that trip? Talking to a lot of the diabetics. I learned that there are 7.5 million people in this country who use insulin. And as I learned, 1/4 of them are doing exactly what this woman is doing, and that is rationing their insulin. And what she just told you is that is a very dangerous thing to do. Insulin is the oxygen for diabetics. They need it to stay alive and to stay healthy. You cannot ration it. You get sick. Maybe you die. And 1/4 of the people in this country are rationing insulin at a time when we pay 10 times more than Canadians do for the same exact product. This is criminal. This is criminal. This is unacceptable. Now, in the drug companies, and I see we have Wendell Potter here, who knows a little bit more about this than I do, actually. But to my mind, there is no question. Greed is one thing. Corporate America is full of greed. But in terms of the drug companies, I have not the slightest doubt. There is massive corruption and price fixing. Now, my memory is correct. I know this. And in terms of insulin, there are 3 major manufacturers. And just coincidentally, they control 90% of the insulin market, 3 companies. Just coincidentally, you'll all be shocked to know that when one company raises its prices, the other 2 as well. Okay, that's called collusion, that's called price fixing. And you got other companies who are selling, right now is a massive settlement underway from the opioid companies who are selling opioids to people all over this country, knowing that it was addictive, and they will pay billions of dollars in fines for doing that. That's what you got in the pharmaceutical industry right now. You got criminal activity, and I will deal with that, believe me. I've been dealing with these crooks my whole life. I was the first member of Congress to take people over the Canadian border way back, 20 years ago, to buy breast cancer drugs. Same story as insulin. Had working class women in the northern part of the St. Albans, Franklin County area of Vermont, got on a bus, went to Montreal, Canada. We had to prearrange it. They bought a drug called tamoxifen, which was a widely prescribed breast cancer drug. They paid 1/10, same thing with insulin, 1/10 of the price they were paying in the United States. Okay, so that is what we have got to deal. And what you're going through is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. You're entitled to get the medicine you need to stay alive and to stay healthy. All right, other comments? We get just maybe a few. Ma'am, right here.
Thank you. That way? Hi, my name is Stacy Wood. I'm actually out visiting from California. And what I wanted to share is that your opening in how you brought so much clarity for me in the Medicare for All issue. It had not, the communication that we see, we don't have the same accessibility to candidates that you experience in this state. And it wasn't landing for me, and I didn't get it. And I was sharing with my friend earlier, I was actually mixing up Medicare for All with what we have, which is Medi-Cal, for people who are
Medicaid expansion.
Or Medicaid, and I personally had friends pass away unnecessarily under those. So I didn't understand the difference in Medicaid or Medi-Cal and Medicare because I don't participate in any of those plans. And so if that's there for me, I'm not as aware as many, but I'm, I think, more aware than most. I'm part of a swing left group. We just raised $18,000 last month for the Unifier Die Fund. We letter write. We canvassed for all of the swing districts in our area and made a difference. and yet, like, I'm not getting that message.
You're right. Look, I agree with you, and I agree with you, and we got to do better at it. But I want you to know that one of the problems we have is we got to get through a media. That's very hard. That is just very, very hard. This is not an issue. You would think that given the healthcare crisis, you'd be seeing program after program talking about the Swedish healthcare system, the Canadian healthcare system. Why do we spend so much? Why is this woman in a horrible situation? She said, you would think you would have those programs. But guess what? The pharmaceutical industry spends billions of dollars on ads, right? Remember see those crazy ads on television? Take this drug. It may cause constipation, death, hemorrhaging, and many other things, but it's good for you, you know. And it costs a fortune, by the way, those drugs. All right, but, you know, that has an impact on what the TV will cover.
Can I leave you with one thing?
Yes.
What I want to say is, like, I'm going to be your partner in taking that message back to the communities that I am in. And that every single one of us can make a difference. And even in whether it's canvassing or being part of Field Team 6 or Swing Left or whatever organizations are here locally, and that free tuition at NYU was started for the doctors, came from one man in a self-expression and leadership program with Landmark who had this idea. And he wanted to make a difference and have doctors be able to get it. So I'm just saying, one person here and one person that we all can make a difference.
We sure can. Thank you very much. Rachel, do you want to say a word? Why don't you introduce yourself on the line? I know you. I'm not sure that everybody does.
Senator, thank you very much for the shout out. I used to work for the health insurance industry. I worked for Cigna for about 15 years, Humana before that. Altogether about 25 years in healthcare. One of the things that's very important for people to know is that this system is no longer working for businesses. Steve mentioned having to give up offering coverage to his workers. That is something probably what you don't know is that health insurance companies actively purge businesses that are no longer profitable to them. They actively increase rates of 20% just to discourage you from continuing on. In 1969, about 67% of businesses were offering coverage. It's now down to about 50%. The other thing to keep in mind is that health insurance companies cannot, nor do they want to control healthcare costs. As drug prices go up, as hospital prices go up, because of the system we have, they're able to demand more and more in terms of premiums and shift more of the cost to people. So it's a system that works for them. They're making a lot of money, and they are able to perpetuate this system through their propaganda campaigns, and I used to be a part of that. My job at Cigna and Humana was to help perpetuate the myth that our system is essential, that we have to have a system like this. And I used to criticize and help people, make people believe certain things about the Canadian healthcare system, for example, that is not correct. Senator, thank you very much for what you're doing and for making this something that is the lead issue in the campaigns this year. And I really think that the work that you're doing is essential. It's not a matter of if, but when we get to Medicare for all. So thank you, sir.
Thank you. Woman right here, sunglasses. It's all right. They're nice.
What I would like to say and ask you is, you're talking about the pharmaceutical companies. Okay, they're big guns. There are politicians out there that are backing them. I mean, there are lobbyists out there backing them. Multi-million, billion-dollar company. Now, how in the world can you possibly fight pharmaceutical companies and come out being a winner? Come out having her be able to afford her insulin. I mean, I'm an old lady. I'm pushing 80. So here we go with my I had open heart surgery 3 months ago. And here, pharmaceuticals are really expensive, like you said. to keep us alive. But how can you, as a politician running for office, fight them?
That's what I do. In my political career, I don't take money from the drug companies, and I don't take money from the insurance companies, and I don't take money from the fossil fuel industry, and I don't sit down in rich people's living rooms and get their campaign contributions. That's all. Here's how we fight them. We fight them because the pharmaceutical industry is detested all over this country. People understand the story that this woman has told can be multiplied 1,000,000 times. People understand that they are incredibly greedy. You talk about buying politicians, they have spent billions of dollars, that's a B, billions of dollars in the last 20, 30 years on lobbying and campaign contributions. They got on their payroll former leaders of the Democratic Party, former leaders of the Republican Party, all right? And the end result is that right now it is perfectly legal for them to double the price of your medicine tomorrow. Perfectly legal. They can charge you any price that the market will bear, and that is exactly what they do. Not to mention price fixing and collusion and all of the rest. So what this campaign, above and beyond all the issues we're talking about today, is bringing the American people together. Millions and millions of people to stand up and say that we have had enough of the greed and the corruption of the insurance industry, of the pharmaceutical industry. We can then talk about climate change and what the fossil fuel industry is doing to our planet, all right? We can go on and on. That's where we are today. And that's why what this campaign is about is a political revolution. It is bringing people together, black and white and Latino, gay, straight, everybody. Bringing people together around an agenda that works for all people. And you know what? The very top of that agenda is healthcare is a human right, and under Medicare for all, as I said before, because we're going to force down prices. Nobody in America under Medicare for all pays more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs they need. That will make quite a difference in this woman's life and the life of millions of people. Now, I'm not here to tell you, because you've already indicated, this is not an easy fight. They have unlimited, Wendell, am I right in saying they have unlimited amounts of money? All right?
It's their money, too. It's everyone's money.
Right. You're paying premiums, they're making profits, and then we're using their profits to make sure that we don't have Medicare for all the lower-cost prescription drugs. That is a corrupt system. They made $100 billion last year. 1% of that is $1 billion. That's nothing. $1 billion for them is nothing. They're going to flood the airways here in New Hampshire and all over this country, telling people how terrible Bernie is and how terrible Medicare for all is. But the momentum is with us. Over the last 4 years, believe me, I have seen a huge transformation of how people thinking about healthcare. And that is what is getting them very nervous. All right, with that, I know we can go on for hours. I really do. I have to apologize because I got some more meetings here in New Hampshire. But I wanted to thank these guys for being here. Thank you. I want to thank Keating for allowing us to use this beautiful room here. Thank you, Steve, for showing up very much. Thank you all.